Hello and welcome to A Can or Not, a podcast where we think and talk about issues we face as Christians and if we can handle them or not. Today's host will be Sarah, and she will be interviewing Reverend Tryphena Law to discuss on this question. Can you love a person who identifies as LGBT or not?
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for joining me today via Zoom due to our MCO restrictions. And if you'll just start off this morning by introducing yourself and sharing part of your story and background and how the Lord has led you to become the director of PLUC.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tryphena. I'm an ordained minister with the Assemblies of God, and I've been involved in this ministry with Pursuing Liberty Under Christ, or PLUC, for the past 18 years. So this year is our 19th year. We are entering the 19th year of the ministry. First and foremost, yes, I was a lesbian before. For more than 10 over years, I was living in darkness till I come to a crossroad where I had to make a decision to go on living as one, or to discover more about my own self and to work on the issues in my life. So I want to start with this session today by saying that first and foremost is that I'm not born as a lesbian. Okay, well, maybe next time we have more chance to explore about this area. But indeed, I'm not born as a lesbian because when I was born, I was biologically I was born as a girl. Okay, but being a firstborn daughter in a typical Chinese family, and of course being in Asia, I think globally it works pretty much the same as well. They always expect the firstborn to be a son, but I came out as a female. I knew my parents love each other very much because they couldn't control themselves anymore. They love each other so much so that before they got married, they conceived me. So I had to come into the world, so they had to get married. So I think in a way, my parents, they got married pretty young, and within the next 5 years, my parents had four of us, me being the eldest and the firstborn daughter. Okay, so they are, like I say just now, I'm not born as a lesbian, but there were many contributing factors towards towards me being who I was in the past. And I want to emphasize a little bit more on the psychological factor. In fact, there could be many other contributing factors, and it's pretty complex. And I would say that each one has its own journey and each one has its own complexity. So what happens to me may not necessarily happen to another person, but being the firstborn daughter, my parents had always have very high expectation on me. So in a way, when I was a little child, I remember these were the few things that's very much needed psychologically for a child, and I needed that being the firstborn. Imagine I had sort of like all the attention for the first year, and then and within 5 years, my parent had four of us, so all the attention was spread. So I was fighting for attention in a way, being the eldest, and my parents always say this to me: Tryphena, you are the eldest, so you need to be a good role model. You need to exemplify that you are a good girl, and then we will love you. So you see, I have a kind of like imprinted in me a wrong, a distorted, I would say, not to say wrong, a distorted belief system that in order for me to gain their love, in order for me to get affection, I need to be good. So I try my best to be very good. So I wanted attention from them because I wanted affection. But ultimately, because one of my love language is words of affirmation, I wanted to be affirmed. And growing up in my generation, saying good things to the children is something that is pretty rare. So I hardly get to hear, affirmative words from especially from my parents. Not that they don't love us. They, like I say, they love each other so much so that within 5 years, there were four of us. Okay, they do love us, but the way they love us was different, and I perceive it very differently. So my distorted mindset began to be much more distorted in many ways, especially when I was at the age of, I think it was at the age of 6. I was playing with a neighbor, and this girl, she's also same age with me. We were very young, and and what happened that day was this. I remember when I was a little girl, my mom always tell me that your body belongs to you and no one else is supposed to touch it. Even when I was like 6 and below, she started to educate us that way. And also, like, I have that distorted mindset. I needed to do good in order to be loved. So anything that I do wrong, for sure I would not tell them because I wanted them to love me. So when I was about 6 and this neighbor was playing with me, and she was lying on top of me, and she started to touch me at places that she wasn't supposed to and kiss me. So that was what we call psychologically. I had a At that moment I actually went through early sexual awakening. So my distorted mindset was this, Sarah. It was I had it's because my friend loved me, so she touched me. So that was the distorted mindset I had. And little did I know that this mindset carries me through even when I became a teen or even when I was a young adult. What was the distorted? The distorted here is this. When I began to be exposed to porn when I was as a teenager, I began to have this mindset that, in order for someone to love me, I must be willing to allow that person to have sex with me. So sex equals to love, love equals to sex. Because when I was a little girl, touch equals to love, love equals to touch. So it was something that I didn't know how to renew my mind, because sex is a taboo to talk about in my family. It's a hush hush topic. Nobody ever talks about this because it's something that is very shameful to talk about. So when I was a little girl, I wanted to be affirmed. I was born pretty chubby, Sarah. I mean, I wish I had long hair like you, I mean, the kind of nice figure, but I was born very chubby. So when I was a little girl, I was wearing a very beautiful dress and I was just swinging in front of my parents. And I asked my parents, I mean, I didn't really say much. I just swing, swing, swing. And know what my parents told me? They just say this to me: don't eat so much. Oh no, that's again a distorted mindset that is being imprinted in me. Now, I bring out all this distorted mindset because it has impacted me psychologically. All right. So the power of words that time when they say don't eat so much, even though they meant it as a joke or they meant it as something else, but they didn't say that I was fat. But I assume I had this perception that I was fat. So I hated myself. I didn't like myself. I find it so hard to accept my whole what do you call my my whole self-image. That's why when I grew up, I had issue with my image. And when I was in school, I was being labeled, I was being laughed at, and all this thing, it became hurt to me. It was something that was pretty traumatizing. And I remember very well, this was the kind of the breaking point in my life where I completely hated men. When I was about age of 13, my parents had a very serious argument. Not that they didn't argue; they argued a lot, even when I was a little girl, and I was playing the role as a surrogate husband to my mother. Okay, because she couldn't relate to my dad that much, and I became a place of comfort for her, and she would pour out things to me. So at a very young age, I had to be a protector, and I needed to be protected. So when I was at the age of 13, they had a very serious argument to the point where my dad did something that he regretted. And much later years, of course, he chased us out of the home. He chased my mom and he chased four of us siblings out. And I remember when I was in the taxi, in the cab that day, in the evening, we were leaving the house. In my heart, I make a vow. I say, when I grow up, I will excel better than all the men in the world. When I grow up, I will be the protector of my family. I will provide. I will make sure that none of them get hurt. You see, it was very serious because I make a vow that I would not trust any man and I look down on them because my dad represented the man's image in my life and it was totally broken. So I couldn't trust my father. I couldn't trust the man. But of course, lo and behold, my mom saw that we were all still so young, and with persuasion from my father, finally they reconciled. But the thing is this: the crack was there, the scar, and I took about more than, I think, at least more than probably 5 to 8 years before I could really forgive my father for what he did in my life. Mind you, at that period of time, at the age of 13, when they had a serious argument, I already accepted Christ. Okay, but my accepting Christ, my salvation was very much, I would say this, it was just hate knowledge.
Mm.
I I call myself a Christian. I mean, but I was pretty much an underground Christian too because my parents didn't allow it. But I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't know. Not that it's the fault of people who disciple me, but it's just that my perception of a lot of things was this, that I needed to do good, then only God will love me. Remember? That was the distorted mindset that really um, changed a lot of things that I do, a lot of my own perception. So I had to actually do good. I serve so that God can love me more. That was how I was doing as a Christian that time. So of course, later on, um, I became a teacher. I was a educator, okay, just like you. And of course, being a teacher and being a Christian, you need to do good. You need to be good. You need to be good role model. People are looking at you. But I was posted somewhere else, and being far away from home and far away from people whom you really accountable to and things like that. I was going through something that I did not share with people. I was going through loneliness.
Mm.
So in the midst of my loneliness and with the exposure that I had when I was a teen, in terms of addicted to pornography, it intensified the desire, the lust in me, and I got myself much more addicted to porn. And of course, I had issues of didn't know how to develop intimate relationship with same sex because the closest that I had was with my mom, and it was much more of me having to protect her. So I wasn't being sort of met in certain ways of my own needs as as a daughter. And also with the distorted image that I have about men, I find it very hard to be close to the opposite sex, for fear of rejection, as I was rejected before when I was a teenager by one of the guys. So there were a lot of complexity, but I needed people that I can talk to. So I began to have some good friends, and lo and behold, being weak and being exposed to a lot of pornography that increases the lust in me. One day I fell into same sex, not only same sex orientation, not only that I was attracted to same sex, but I also fell into the same sex behavior. So little did I know that, oh, this is what the world call as lesbian or same sex relationship. Of course, I have always been a closeted lesbian. I mean, nobody knew that I was one. Like I told you, I'm an educator, I'm a Christian. I serve in church, I lead worship, I was in the Rangers. I was very involved because I wanted God to love me. Um, I got myself involved with a few relationships, and each time I knew that it was wrong. And I couldn't tell anybody in church. It's sad to say that. Church is supposed to be a safe place, but it wasn't that they are not safe. I could not find that safety in them. So it's more of myself because it takes a lot of courage to reveal to somebody. So I didn't know where to get help. But each time when a relationship break off, I was so broken. but I didn't know how, because to me, God is somebody that I need to do good in order to reach Him. I didn't know that I can have a relationship with Him. So one after another, I get even, I run back to Him. I say, sorry, God, but I didn't work through my issues and I fall again. So, until I left teaching, thinking that I wanted to explore the world, okay, just for a year, but I knew that God has called me. I knew God called me for the ministry even when I was a teenager. Just that it's very conflicting, because you lived a life that is in darkness and then you want to be the light. So it was very conflicting, but I responded to God's call. So I went into Bible seminary. Okay. And in the year 1997, I went into Bible seminary. But it was also then that I experienced this, something that I hardly share. I think today is my first time sharing it. That in 1997, it was also quite devastating for me, because my mom passed away during my first year in Bible seminary. And that actually, emotionally, it was quite challenging for me. On one hand, I hated her. On another hand, I love her. So we have a love-hate relationship. Okay, but it was also during that time that, of course, I had another relationship, and this was somebody that I really really loved, and I gave my all in all to her. And of course, after a few years, she decided to walk away from my life, and that was very devastating. Uh, Imagine, I was already in seminary. I was living a double life. Nobody knew. So every day is a battle for me, between following God's way or following my flesh. Every day is a battle. It's really by grace of God I still have my sanity then. Okay, um, but when this partner of mine left me, it really left not just a vacuum, it also left me so devastated that I didn't want to continue living. So I actually come to the verge of suicidal. I was about to kill myself. Took the car key, I wanted to drive. But you know what, Sarah? I have no explanation for this. But as I was about to open the door to go outside, to walk to my car, I was frozen for quite a while. I couldn't move. I don't know how long, but I couldn't move. I just stood there for a long time until I say this, God, you win. Then I was able to walk.
Wow.
It was the longest night in my life that day. And that day, I waited till early in the morning to call one of my good friends who knew about my mess. And this friend of mine said, why don't you call this couple? And this couple is actually the pastor and his wife. They're missionary from US to Malaysia. So I called them. Normally they don't on their phone because they were teaching in a seminary, but that day they switched on their phone, and somehow or another, they pick up my line, and I was able to meet them. I remember going to see them that day with great shame. So if anybody ever come to you and say that they have this issue, you better be glad, because they trust you. I had lots of shame that day. I took up all the courage and bonus. Imagine, I already graduated from Bible seminary, and I was pastoring the children and youth ministry in my own church. I was the youth and children pastor. I was so ashamed, but I knew that I can't do anything because God didn't want me to die. So I had to seek help. So I went to see them. I say, Pastor Mike and Sister Diane, Mike Constantine and Sister Diane Constantine. I say, I'm a lesbian. Thank God when they look at me, they didn't do that. They look into my eyes and say, Tryphena, Jesus loves you. Wow.
Yeah.
That was the turning point. I was so messed up. I was so wretched. Not only I had messed up my life with female, I tried having, intimacy with men as well. So I really messed up my life. I really messed up. It's not because of grace of God. I think today I would have probably HIV or something else. But they look into my eyes and say, Jesus loves me. And they journey with me. They had to go back to States. And during that time, mind you, where in the world we have WhatsApp and Line and and all the form of communication which is so easy. I mean, the most I had at the time was an email. So whenever what I did was after talking to them, I I tendered in my resignation to the church, within 24 hours. And my greatest regret in my life is I hurt the church that loves me so much, the youth and the children. Nobody knew because I could not relate to them why I had to leave. So it was like a tornado that day. Boom, the whole church was really shaken that I left. But I had to leave for the sake of my soul. And so as I went away, I had to work through my issues. That time there wasn't any ministry such as this in Malaysia, and I didn't know where to get help except for this couple. So as I was going through grief and everything, each time I emailed to them, the next day there will be a phone call all the way from States. That's how they journey with me, and they helped me to look for help, and the closest was in Singapore. So I went out to Singapore. I traveled week after week for 16 weeks down to Singapore for help. And I thank God that God gave me people whom I do not know just to love me. Remember, God wanted to renew my mind. That Tryphena, even when you didn't do good, I still love you. So that was part of the healing. I went through pastoral counseling. I went through the support group. But most importantly, it was at night in the quietness in the room that I was staying that I experienced God through the Word of God. And healing began to take place. And it was an opportunity for my mindset to be renewed by the truth of God, and to also work through the hurts that was contributed psychologically in my life. It took a while. I never thought that I would be back in ministry. In fact, it's a miracle. Every time when I'm able to share, I always see that it's a miracle. It's really a grace of God to be able to share. But somehow or another, the Lord say, I want to use you, even though you're a broken vessel. And He reinstate me back into the ministry, and I still have people that walk with me and journey with me. I'm still in my journey, by the way, Sarah, because my journey will never stop until I see Jesus face to face.
Right.
Yeah. But I'm thankful to the Lord, because in the past I may not be able to say no or reject the things that God is not pleased with. But today I have increased, my muscles. I've exercised a little bit more, discipline my spiritual muscles to say no when some of these things comes along the way. So I want to give God all the glory for what He has done in my life and enabling me today from a struggling pastor to pastoring strugglers.
Yeah, praise God for your story. It is just such a privilege for us as the church to be able to hear how the Lord has worked in your life, and how you're able to use your testimony to help other brothers and sisters who are also struggling. And as I said, that is the purpose of this interview, is to be able to equip us as the church to walk alongside and to journey, as you said, with those who are struggling, who are coming out of darkness, who are stepping into the light. And so with that, what is our biblical response to our brothers and sisters who struggle with same-sex attraction?
For me personally, if they're willing to come, if they're willing to come out, all right, I think the goal is to walk with them to come home to the Lord. I think they already know. that this is not something that God is pleased with, because God speaks very clearly in Genesis 1, verse 27, that He created us first and foremost in His image. He created us as male and female. He intentionally did that for the reason of procreation, which is one of it, but also for the intention of having fellowship with us. In fact, as I was reading a book yesterday night, it wasn't Adam that asked for a life partner. It was God that gave it to him. God saw that Adam was alone. Adam didn't complain that I'm alone. And God gave him, and God did not create women from dust, God picked it in such a way that it was taken from Adam. So God intentionally created man and women in His image, which means that biblically we are called to be like God. And of course, in chapter 2, we begin to read in Genesis chapter 2, whereby God began to call out this man, God called out this woman, and God joined them together. So in terms of biblical, God's origin of His creation is for a man and a woman coming together, uniting them, that the two shall become one. That is His original plan. And God has commanded that both of them rule the world together. But because if you were to read on, you find that man, God has never removed one thing from us, that is the freedom, that is the free will that He has given to us. If not, we will just be like any animals or any things. But God has made us in His image. He's given us that freedom, that to choose, the freedom to exercise, the right that we have. But man wanted to be like God. That's why in Genesis chapter 3, man began to sin. And the moment man sinned, the world no longer is the same world that God has created. Sin has distorted a lot of things, including this holy matrimony. God created marriage, to overcome actually the darkness. But over the years, you begin to realize that man want to be God, and man became very liberal. Man begin to fight for their right, and you find that ideologies start to change. That's why marriage today, in the eyes of some general community, no longer is confined to a man and a woman. So in our ministry, our biblical stand is one man, one woman, one husband, one wife. It doesn't stop there, Sarah. Till death do us part. Which means that even if it's one man, one woman out of marriage, is not God's original intention. That means premarital sex is not God's intention. And if it's one man and many wives, it's also not God's intention. So if you want to have intimacy with other people's wife, committing adultery is also not God's intention. And by the way, God's intention is for the couple to stay on till they see Jesus face to face, till death do us part. That's the biblical stand.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that for us. So as you were sharing, you're on this journey, and you have had lots of other believers walk alongside you with this journey. But when you were coming out and admitting that you had this same-sex attraction struggle, but you were seeking help, what were other people's responses to your behaviors, and maybe even the way that you dressed? A lot of times I think that we are a little bit intimidated by approaching this touchy subject of someone who might behave in a certain way that is of the opposite sex, or even dress in a certain way. And so how are we as the church supposed to address this while we walk alongside our brothers and sisters in their journey?
I think church is the biggest hospital. all kinds of people are going to walk in. If you're not ready for that, then please don't do church.
Right.
Okay, I mean, when you have a church, I'm talking about as maybe the building for some people, but for me, church is a group of believers coming together. And when you have 2 or 3 gather, that is already a church. Okay, so I think as a church, first and foremost, can we wear the lens of Jesus? And please don't look at them differently. They're no different than you. You know, thank God, nobody really. Well, I may get names, when I was a little bit much more gender neutral in my dressing, much more masculine in my dressing. I will get people calling me names like tomboy. People calling me names like, terrible names. I mean, I guess it's because they were not exposed, they were not educated, and they end up hurting others. That's why I hope that today's session will be also a platform for church per se to learn, to have that awareness that we are not called to discriminate or persecute anybody that's different than us. Okay? So it's very important that we do not see them differently. Why do I say that? Because Genesis 1:27 applies for everybody. They are created in God's image. They do carry God's image. They are the, we call it the image bearer, God's image bearer. The only difference is this, that there will be some who has the image of God and choose to walk away from this creator. But that does not erase all God's image from them. So let's not look at them differently. Okay. So I think church can be educated. Church can be equipped, to learn how to connect with people who are different than us. Now, I use these people who are different because there's so many types of people that are different than you. I mean, maybe in your church, you stand up, sit down, stand up, sit down. When they come into a church, they don't know how to stand up and sit down. They'll probably just sit. I mean, they do not know your culture. All right. So I think church needs to be educated to be a safe place, to be a welcoming place, to be a place of hospitality for those who are different than us. Now, hear me. I need to emphasize this. By being welcoming, by being accepting, does not equal to us affirming the different behaviors of different people who choose not to walk in God's way. Does it make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. So welcoming and accepting does not equal to affirming.
Right.
A church is, I mean, if we really do a survey, I can assure you everybody has things that are not pleasing to God. It's just that they are not exposed. I'm talking about Christians here.
Right. And I think it's important to differentiate, right? Acceptance and affirmation, right? I can love someone without affirming the sin that they are living in. Yeah. So thank you for just sharing the differences with that. So with that being said, I think that sometimes it is our indignation that can lead us to becoming judgmental towards someone who dresses a certain way or who behaves in a way that is different than we think is fit for church. So is it wrong to feel this indignation or is it wrong to feel revolted by this behavior and not have a high esteem of the person exhibiting it?
Well, I think honestly, I always ask myself, what right do I have to speak into a person's life? If I don't have that relationship, honestly speaking, I don't have the right. Okay, but if I'm in a public, and if there's something that I see, for example, if I see a child slapping another child, and the adult is not doing something, I would open my mouth and say, I would open my mouth and speak to the adult. Aren't you uh, going to do something about this child slapping another child? I mean, that would be my public responsibility. If I see somebody being robbed, I wouldn't just stand there and not do anything. That would be my public responsibility. I would actually speak something if I see someone else marginalizing someone else. So the same thing here. If I see someone ridicule the LGBTQ, discriminating them, even though I do not agree to their behavior, okay, I do not agree to what they do privately per se, or they do publicly per se, which is against my values, that is biblical. That doesn't give me the right to go and speak against them and discriminate them. All right. So if I have that feeling that I need to judge them, I need to discriminate, I think I need to self-check first. Why? What is it that I'm not comfortable with? There must be something you're not comfortable with. And then is there a way of relating it? For example, if I have a friend who keep talking to me about sexual things, and it is making me very uncomfortable. It is talking about maybe my physical body and stuff like that, and in fact that is is part of sexual violation per se. Start to speak about my private parts, my genitalia, and so forth, that makes me very uncomfortable. Do you know that I actually have a right to shut his mouth? And I can tell him that I'm not comfortable. So the same thing, if your friends who are different than you, and they begin to exhibit certain behavior that makes you very uncomfortable, and because they are your friends, you can actually let them know how you feel, but not telling them that that is wrong. Does it make difference there?
Yes.
I can just, let's say, for example, Sarah, you and your boyfriend, and very intimate in front of me, keep kissing and kissing and kissing. Hello? You think what, I'm invisible one? Transparent, is it? So I would be saying, Sarah, would you mind not to do this in front of me, because I feel very uncomfortable. So I think there need to be that word respect. Mutual. It's not just you respecting them, but they also need to learn to respect you, even though you disagree.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you so much for answering that. Yeah. So, as believers, how do we balance love for someone who has same-sex attractions, while at the same time balancing that distaste, that indignation for what they do? What does that balance look like?
Wow. I think if we have a good relationship with that friend, okay, and you will be given a chance. Usually, they might want to test and see your limitation. Where are you? Your boundary. They might want to test you, and that's where you can say, "Is it all right for me to say something?" You see, you love them as a friend. You love them because I think we should not stop loving somebody just because they're different than us. Okay, there will be many people who are different than us, and I think it's very important that we ask for that opportunity. Say, can I share how I feel? That's where you have the balance between truth and grace. Okay, so I would ask for the opportunity to speak, because we need to respond with genuine compassion. We do need to. Okay, they will be asking you some things, and you don't just say it's okay. It's okay. That is not okay. Deep within you, it contradicts with your value. It contradicts with my value. Okay, so I would speak the truth with love. because the truth is from the Word of God, and the truth will reveal this true message to them. It's really up to them, because I ask for permission first. I say, is it okay? Is it all right that I express how I feel? Because they will want to know. Because I think in a friendship, they need to be that communication. There need to be that mutual respect. Okay, they need to be that opportunity for listening ears, so that I can also let them know how I feel and what I think, instead of me, deep inside my thought, I begin to be very judgmental. I think that is a sin.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that's how I balance. For example, I have people that come into my room, and we journey with them. We don't do one-to-one journey. In our ministry, it's always 2-to-1, two pastoral counselor to one person who is in need of help. Okay, so I remember this person. This person say, "Tryphena, can you? I just want to go and try it for 2 years. Some more got time frame one for 2 years. I just want to go out and try." Would I say that? Would I just keep quiet? No. I love this person. I love this person that in my heart, I'm already cheering and crying. Okay, but I would be very genuine in my compassion by saying that, can I just share with you what I think? So I tell the person, I don't think you will be back after 2 years, but my door is always open at any time. If you need to come back and bounce thoughts and bounce ideas, not even saying that when you want to change. No, no, no. When you just want someone to talk to, my doors are open. And the person have never come back to my door even more than 5 over years, really. I think more than that, in fact. So that doesn't stop me from telling them the truth, but with lots of compassion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. And you shared in your story, you reached a place where God showed you that you were living in this darkness, and you could no longer stay in that darkness as you were coming into His light, and having people there with you that were walking alongside of you in His light. But how do we address those who are still very much living in darkness, and who are in fact proud of and find their identity in their homosexual orientation?
We have no right to change anybody. That's not our work. Okay? Conviction of sin is the work of the Holy Spirit. But you and I, we can still be their friends.
Yeah.
You need to ask yourself, you need to be very honest with yourself. If you can't take it, then please don't. Don't go and force yourself to be their friend, because they also don't want you to be, to wear a mask when you're with them. Okay, and if they choose to live in darkness, there's so many people out there choose to live in darkness. Either they really do not know, they have no opportunity to know the truth, or they literally want to be in the darkness. Honestly, each one of us is responsible for our own life. Okay, I can't. Let me put it this way. Let me give an illustration. I always use this illustration. I have friends who smoke. All right, they after meals. Of course, now we can't get to sit together and eat. Okay, but usually after meals, they will take out the cigarette and they will puff in front of you. I remember those days, and when every time after meal they puff, I will make excuses to walk away. I'll just leave the table for a short while, and I'll come back. After a few times, they begin to realize that I always walk away. And then they ask me this, Tryphena, why do you walk away? Then I say, you really want to know? I mean, friends needs to be real. Huh? Yeah. You really want to know? And I'm not being offensive. I say, I do not want to be a secondhand smoker. Which means that I do have a choice too, not to be part of certain things that I do not agree, but doesn't mean that I am not their friends. if they are still in that community, or if they still want to enjoy that lifestyle, I think unless they actually talk to you or express to you, then you can actually let them know. If not, um, I'm going to be very, very unpolished here, unrefined. I will use this word: mind your own business.
Mm.
Really. If you really care for them, pray for them.
Mm-hmm.
Pray that they'll come to meet the Lord Himself. Because I strongly believe that anybody who have that encounter, experience meeting God face to face, their life would never be the same. So I don't need to do anything except, ask myself, can I cope with it? If I can't, then please walk away.
Mm.
It doesn't mean that I'm weak, but I'd rather be praying for them than to be judgmental after mixing with them.
Yeah. Yeah. Something you mentioned in your story that really stood out to me was just the fact that the Lord has used you and is using you as His broken vessel. And so, what would you say to someone who very much feels shame for the homosexual urges that they struggle with, especially in bringing that out into the light, sharing it with other people, while also having to deal with the shame of it?
Mm-hmm. I think first and foremost, I want to say this, that your struggle is real.
Mm.
Your struggle is real. And I don't underestimate the pain that you are going through. It is real. And as for myself, I can't be speaking for you, but because of shame, because of not having that energy, or not having that support, and I didn't know how to come out, shame actually pushes me further away from God. No, it's very similar to the story of Adam and Eve when they sinned against God in the garden, and when God called them, they hide. The reason why they hide is because, number one, they were very ashamed of themselves. Number two, they're very fearful. They do not know what's next. Okay, and this two thing itself actually pushes me away, because I knew that God is not happy with it, but I didn't know how to come out. So I was very much ashamed. And each time when I fall into that cycle, it was so hard to come out, because shame pushes me further and further away from God. So I want to say this. It would take a lot of courage, but I pray that you will have the courage, because God always gave us second chance.
Mm.
Remember the woman that was caught in adultery? Poor thing. She was the only one that had to face the bell. I don't know where's the other one. All right. We know very well that the Pharisees wanted to nail Jesus and brought that woman. So most of the time we are like that. We were the one that being brought forward, and we feel that we're so alone. But you know what? Jesus is defending you. Jesus said, if any one of you have not sinned, then you cast the first stone. We're so afraid that people will cast the stone on us. I'm not asking you to expose to the whole world. I'm asking you to take up the courage to come before God and allow God to reveal the right person for you, so that that person can journey with you. Because Jesus said this, not only to this woman, but just say to me also, Tryphena, go and sin no more. And in fact, this word go and sin no more, it's not just for that women caught in adultery, it's for all of us. For all of us.
Mm.
God is giving us second chance. In fact, He gives us many chances.
Yeah.
So I want to encourage you. I know it's hard, but just take the first step. Get help. Help is available. If you want to discover more about your own identity, you want to discover more why you're struggling. I mean, if you're open, you can be in touch with us as well. or be in touch with the church leaders. I'm sure that the very thing they're having this session is that they want you to know that they are also willing to walk with you. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all I want to say, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sometimes that shame can actually lead us to even walking away from the church because we feel such strong rejection. And so, how can we help those whose shame may have led them to walking away from the church? How can we welcome them back in?
Listen, I mean, I I have people who have been shamed by Christians.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry that if you are the one that have gone through this, I'm so sorry that you were rejected, you were shamed. That's why it's so important for church to be educated. It's so important so that the reason why I take up all this invitation for this kind of talks is that prayerfully, we can increase their gender understanding so that they do not mess up any more than it is. Okay? And I know it will take a while, and I pray that those who have been rejected, that the most important thing is that give yourself an opportunity to discover this God for yourself. It's not discovering the church, discovering this God for yourself. Okay? Because if we keep looking towards church for support, for role model, I can tell you they fail us. Even myself. Even when in my early journey during my restoration, my first few years, I actually had a second fall. And it's because of grace of God that they were leaders that came alongside with me to help me and pick me up. But I had to look back. I have to look towards God because He's the one that redeems me. So please don't look to church per se, okay? Because they are all broken people. We are all in the same hospital. We are all undergoing recovery in our own ways. Okay, let's look to God. But God do send us certain nurses, certain community, not a big. You notice in the hospital is not all are nurses. There are more patients than nurses. Okay, more patients than doctors and nurses. But God will send us this small cluster of people, and I pray that you will have a chance to discover them. If you find it hard to go back to the same church, go to another church. There will be a place that will be healthy for you because that church still need time to learn. Okay? Yeah. But if you are willing to give them an opportunity to learn together with you, please go back. Okay? I pray that the churches will also reflect on this, and if truly we have hurt somebody, let's put our pride aside. Let's not stand up on a pedestal and look down on people who are so different than us. Let's walk with them. That's called empathy. Let's walk with them. Yeah.
Yeah, that's so good. As we wrap up our interview today, is there any final thoughts, final exhortations that you want to give us as the church to just really accept and show love to those who struggle with the same-sex attraction? As I mentioned, that this is the purpose of this session is that you will walk away better equipped to love and show acceptance to those who struggle with this sin.
I think whether you are representing the church in general or whether you are strugglers per se, I just want to close with this, that we need to have a clear understanding of the doctrine of redemption. We need to understand that every human being, whether they are, the normal word they use is straight, but actually whether you're heterosexual or you're homosexual, it is always this. We need to understand that the doctrine of redemption is that whether you are homosexual, heterosexual, this this group of people, they are not the ones that will go to heaven. It is those who are sinner in need of the redemption that can only come through Christ. And when we have that, we will be where God is. So let's not magnify the word LGBTQ. Let's not magnify lesbianism or homosexuality. Let's not magnify sexual sinners or sexual sin, because God is interested in redeeming us. That's a very powerful message. I think, a lot of time, I just want to close it with this. A lot of time, we have that savior mentality that we want to change a person. Please, just all you need to do is draw them closer to the cross. That's the power of redemption. And that's my heart's prayer, that church be that safe place that portray this. Amen. Thank you so much for having me, Sarah. Thank you.
Yes, we are so thankful for you just being able to meet with us despite these MCO restrictions. So thankful for technology. And just, again, what a powerful story, a powerful testimony. As I mentioned, Tryphena is the director of PLUC. And so if this is something that you really struggle with, please reach out to her organization. They are equipped to help those who struggle with this. So thank you again, Tryphena.
You're most welcome, Sarah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Can or Not, a podcast where we think and talk about issues we face as Christians and if we can handle them or not.